Welcome to Exploring the Ozarks, where we tell the history and stories of locations, organizations, and people from the area. Not Matt, it's actually just me today. Here's Eddie.
Hello.
Gumucio,
yeah.
I almost had it. It was closer than last time.
All good, man.
So that opening is usually me introducing Matt, and then he comes on and we talk about how my voice sounds really good as an announcer or something like that, and we go.
That music's like a workout, man. It is. It gets the energy going.
It does. I mean, that's that Chips music we were talking about beforehand, and that was I'm sure you heard there at the end they start cheering for you, and you're like, yeah, everybody's cheering. They're so excited that we're on this podcast. It's so exciting. So Eddie's here on the podcast with us, and I'm gonna have to avoid saying your name since I can't seem to get it right, but Eddie G. Just Eddie the cool guy.
It's a soft C like mice.
Mice.
Gumucio.
I can say it right once I hear you say Gumucio. I'm gonna say it 20 times and be Gumucio, yeah. Eddie the guy that wears hats.
Yes.
I actually have a hat collection at home.
I do. I only have like 3.
Well, I only wear like 3 of them. And it's funny because I keep telling people I have a hat collection. It's like 6 hats that I've used over the years. And some of them, just belong to certain events or whatever. But I also have like cowboy hats and like fancy little gangster style 60s, 70s era hats.
I'm a fedoras. Practical hat guy though. So you've got beautiful hair.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. I'm having to conceal some things.
Well, I used to have my hair really short too, so the hat would be really good for protecting and stuff like that. But anyway, I should get into the introduction. I'm not used to doing this part. Like I said, Matt, so I should say Matt is out of town. He is on a well-deserved vacation. He is with his family, and they're having fun. I think they're on a beach or somewhere. We'll have to ask him when he gets back. But typically we wouldn't do this without him, but Eddie here has a really cool event going on this next week, and we wanted to make sure that we could chat with him about that and learn some more about it. But we will go into this introduction real quick that is in Matt's notes. So we are here at Springfield Studio 1 for this podcast. That is the place that I own and operate, not to brag on myself, but I just gave Eddie the tour, and I guess I shouldn't ask you on the podcast what you thought about it. We'll just say it was all good, right?
It was.
It was good. Okay, there we go.
Sincerely, man. It's a great space. It really is.
Yeah, I've been working on it for a while now. We have a Springfield Improv. They perform out of here every second Saturday. They do classes out of here. We're starting to get people that are going to come in here and use it for presentations like motivational speaking. Working on musicians. I'm hoping that maybe Eddie. I'm just gonna quietly say, we'll see what happens.
Hey, I'm not trying to be all like Shirley MacLaine about all this, but there's a good vibe here.
Good.
Yeah. So that's always that's the first thing I try to pick up on. I'm like, what's the vibe of this place?
I like that,
and it is a good vibe.
Passes the vibe check. I'm going to put that on a quote on a poster and put passes the vibe check. I did try to make it comfortable though. So that's Springfield Studio, and we also do podcasts, as you can see here. If you have a small play you want to do, I was talking to somebody yesterday about doing theater productions here. If you want to play music, if you have a small band, if you want to rent the space for an event, I had actually somebody reach out about doing a family talent show. I thought that was kind of a cool idea.
A family talent
show.
Nice.
I've actually thought about that for my family because we all have different talents, and there's a lot of us. So it's like, hey, this would be a good space for that. So
big family.
Yeah. Yep. 5 brothers and sisters. Well, 2 brothers, 3 sisters. So yeah.
Nice.
So you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all the podcasting sites. Well, mainly Spotify. Well, Anchor, which is now owned by Spotify, and then Apple. We're working on getting it on Stitcher and a couple other places as well. It's just you have to go through and walk a lot of steps on it. And then I must do the shout out now for the Patreon that we have. We use Patreon as a way for the general public to support us.
Patreon.
Patreon.
That's what they'd say in
Patreon.
Spanish. Yeah.
Vamos a hablar en español durante este interview.
Sí, durante el programa. Claro que no. Patreon.
We just said we're going to talk in Spanish. Okay, I should put subtitles that say things that we're not actually saying. We'll just go off in Spanish, be like, yeah, que padre. What does that mean? Oh, yeah.
Me gusta el agua.
¿Dónde estás el baños?
Yeah, there you go.
Stuff like that, But so Terry Carr is our Patreon, and we're trying to get more. I will say she is my mother, which is great. I'm glad she's supporting. But the nice thing about having Patreons is it's a way for individuals to support. If you don't have $600 to throw at us a month as a business sponsor, but you want to support what we're doing, because the people that come on here come on for free, and we do a lot of things to help promote things in the community. That does cost money. I have a crew of people helping out with this. Matt's, he's volunteering his time right now. We have people doing social media. So, but, we do pay people to do things. So if you have the ability to, one, sponsor as a business, great. If not, if you as an individual want to support, we have $5, $10, $25 tiers on Patreon. And we have our first Patreon, which is exciting. And we have multiple business sponsors. We actually just got a new one that we're working on the contracts with. So, yeah, it's moving along, and we're going to hopefully be able to keep on exploring the Ozarks and keep telling cool stories like the one here with Eddie. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, Eddie, tell us about
Congrats.
yourself. I've talked for a while now about us, so tell us about you. What brings you here? Where are you from? Where'd you go? What do you like to do on the weekends? The long walks on the beach, or?
Yeah, exactly.
No, we were talking, about how you came up here in the Ozarks. So I guess we'll start there. I mean, how did you wind up around here in the Ozarks? Are you from here, or are you from? What's the story?
I was originally born in Kansas City, and my dad's from Bolivia, South America, and my mom's here from the Ozarks. She grew up just outside of Springfield, and then they moved to the big city of Springfield.
Okay, yeah. Oh, the big city of Springfield.
Big city.
Very big city, yeah.
She's
I moved here from the West Coast.
West Coast, okay.
From Phoenix, Arizona, so it's always fun.
There you go.
But I do feel that way now. Like, Springfield's a big city.
It's grown.
It has.
I mean, especially since my mom was a teenager, But,
yeah, I'd imagine, yeah.
She's a proud graduate of Parkview.
Okay.
And when she finished there, I think she did a semester at Missouri State. And then
Southwest Missouri State University.
Exactly,
right,
back in
at the time. Yeah. My mom graduated from there too.
Yeah. And I guess the story goes she didn't like it, and a friend of hers was moving to KC and said, "Hey, I need a roommate." So she's like, "All right, I'll go with you."
Yeah.
And long story short, she met my dad up there. They were moving in apparently to an apartment complex, and he was there with some buddies, and being the suave Latino that he is, he offered to help them move in.
Smart, good move.
The story goes that her girlfriend was like, "Wow, he's cute," and she's like, "Yeah, and he's mine."
Way to go, Mom.
Yeah. Which funny. It's funny though, because the way that I know my mother now, and since I've paid attention to her as a grown adult or whatever, I'm just like, you're not outgoing like that. It's like, really? So I don't know.
I was thinking about that the other day. Like, I watch all these Instagram and TikTok reels, and it's like, all these young people are recording themselves with their kids. And it's like, in 20 years, when your kids go and find that as an adult, you're going to be saying all these things about how you were back then. They'll be like, well, but we see you right here in this video doing this thing.
Yeah, it's like, no, you weren't. You never let me do that.
That's why I don't record myself on TikTok, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So they ended up getting together, and then...
Yep, we were all born there. I'm the youngest of 3 boys, and my dad got a job offer back in Bolivia.
Okay.
Some extended family that still lived there had said, "Hey," I guess they were familiar with what he was majoring in or whatever, and they're like, "There's a business here that's opening up, blah, blah, blah. I think it'd be a great fit." So we ended up moving to Bolivia.
That's exciting. That's cool.
It was really cool.
Especially as a kid. I mean, you get a lot more, I think, out of that experience. Being able to learn another language, being able to have those experiences as a kid in a different country.
And for me, my memories of Kansas City I've got 2 or 3.
Sure, yeah.
My oldest brother, it was harder for him to transition to South America. He hated it at the get-go.
Sure, yeah.
And looking back, they say, "Oh, well, you're the most Bolivian," and I'm like, what does that mean? But I get it. I mean, a lot of my formative years, like my memories and a lot of what I hold dear, probably relate more to Bolivia than my 2 older brothers. But I was there K through 5, and I even shared this in the classroom. I've been an educator for 12 years, teach Spanish, and I tell my students, I remember having my little public school lab coat on, and my dad's crying, I'm crying, because he's probably devastated. Like, what have I done to my kid? I've got to leave you here. I got to go to work. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I don't want to be here. Everyone's speaking Spanish. Right. But it's like branded in my memory. Like, I remember that day.
That must have been hard.
Yeah.
Because you didn't really know the language at that point?
Not at all. Not at all. So you're just here. It's like being on
hard.
another planet. It's like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
But at that age, I shared with you earlier, I mean, it feels like it was probably 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And you start to learn, the word for lunch, the word for recess, the word for friend.
And those are all very important words,
exactly.
especially as a child. Yeah.
Especially at school. It's like, so like lunch and recess, that's it. But no, it was great. And then my mom always was like, hey, in the house we speak English.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good. And they also had friends that worked for the American Embassy. So we were surrounded every now and again with English-speaking communities.
Yeah.
But then my dad, had an extensive Spanish family, of course, down there. So we spent a lot of time hanging out with all them and meeting all the extended cousins and stuff.
That's nice, yeah.
It was great.
It's because it's one thing to move someplace and not know anybody, but to be in a situation where you're actually around family and friends, and that sounds like an ideal. At least if you're going to move to a different country and have to learn a whole entire new language and culture, that seems like the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I have to convince somebody to do that for me. Like, hey, let's go find. I don't know how that would work, but anyway. So how'd you end up back here in the Ozarks?
Well, the only thing I can go with is I was getting ready to start 6th grade. So my middle brother would have been 7th or 8th. And then my oldest brother was going to start high school.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the time, this was the early 80s, so now I'm showing my age. I think my parents probably felt like Kansas City was too big at that point.
Sure.
And so since we moved back, instead of going to Kansas City, all of my mom's family is still around here in the Ozarks.
Yeah.
So also being closer to her family.
That makes sense.
I think that's why we came to Springfield, because it was smaller, probably a better place to raise a family. And still is,
Yeah. Did you guys live in Springfield, or did you?
We did, yeah.
Outside area? Okay.
Here in the heart of Springfield.
So you had that experience outside the country, then you came back in 6th grade, so you went through middle school, high school, and all that here. Did you go to college here as well, or?
Yep. Southwest Missouri State University.
There you go, okay.
And then went back for my master's at MSU.
Gotcha. So what was your original bachelor's in?
What we're doing right here, electronic media.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
emphasis
cool.
in production.
Okay.
Radio and film.
Yeah. That much bigger back in the day before the advent of online streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Though, I mean, you may be able to argue that maybe production's more important nowadays because more people do it. And the quality has to be so much higher. You're not like limited by just certain like radio stations and all that. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I feel like it was all for naught, only because with all the skills that I learned,
mm-hmm.
it was all the old school way of doing things.
With like the records or with the 8-track. At that point in time, it would have been
even with splicing.
Yeah.
Like I was splicing tape for
yeah,
PSAs, for commercials
mm-hmm.
on a reel to reel.
Yeah.
No computer, no digital editing.
And now it's all digital.
And so I went from the old school way of learning how to do all these things to, I mean, I'm not kidding. It was probably 3-4 years. It's like, hello, internet, hello this, hello that. And I'm like, what?
And all of a sudden it's gone.
Yeah. And I never kept up with it.
Yeah.
So, nowadays.
So were you working at the radio stations when that happened, or?
No. I did 3 semesters at KSMU. I was an intern there, so I had some DJ experience, and my advisor, Mike Smith, still with KSMU at the time, he was like, "Ed, you got a good set of pipes. You should stay in radio and stuff." And
right.
So I always thought my forte might be in radio. I was definitely interested in film production stuff too.
Oh yeah,
but
that's my forte, or what I want it to be. My actual major's in political science, so I feel for you.
That's a nice blend.
Well, it kind of is actually. I make fun of it because it's like, yeah, I can't really necessarily get a job doing that because you have to be like a professor or work for a think tank or something. But it actually works really well with when you're looking at film and you're looking at like the dynamics of how populations work, or if you look at how to work with large groups of people, or managing large groups of people. I mean, that's still a big part of political science. That and various other things, but. Yeah, it kind of works.
I like it.
Yeah, it works. Okay. I was just curious, if you work in the radio stations, because I know when the internet came around, it started, and this kind of segues into what you're doing with the festival, but the music seemed like it got more homogenous. Like a lot of people, like from around the country, like the bigger production companies started playing the same stuff everywhere because it was easier with the internet, or with that ability to transfer music and playlists to different stations. They could actually start controlling what was played in certain areas. My brother told me one time, he was like, it used to be that you could drive across the country and you would know what area you were in by the music you were listening to. But then you kind of lost some of that with the advent of more centralized music playlist. But I don't know. That's just what he was saying. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I completely agree with that. I think that was back in the day of college radio actually being a thing. I mean, it still exists, but as you say, it's streaming, and still the kids, the DJs, can still pick and choose what they want to play for the most part. Yeah. But back then, I mean, if you went to the South, and you went by Athens, Georgia, I mean, you're hearing that whole scene from REM to Love Tractor to Pylon. Yeah. I mean, the list goes on and on. Or up in Seattle or Boston, with the Lemonheads and the Pixies and all that. So a lot of these names became national names, but I could totally see where, you would tune in, and probably even the larger commercial stations would pick up on those. Because if a particular band in Boston, like the Pixies, was taking off on college radio, then maybe that public radio station was going to be or that private radio station was going to be like, oh, we're going to start spinning the Pixies because apparently they're about to get signed. Yeah,
I didn't realize college radio was that big. Probably because it's, when I was growing up and going through college, it was already internet and all that other stuff going on.
It was huge. It was huge. And then also a lot of the college radio stations supported a lot of the local and regional bands.
Oh, okay. So it's a good way. It was a way to get your foot in the door of the music scene, get on the college radio station, see if people like what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's like, when you go record shopping back in the day, the whole kind of ritual of it all, I think that people that were tuning into these stations, they didn't want to listen to the commercial station. Yeah. Because it was...
They want unique stuff.
Yeah. It was somewhat homogenized even back then, too. I mean, with the Journeys and the Michael Jacksons and the Britney Spears.
People with the money, they could actually get it out everywhere.
But they could catch these FM radio stations on the low end of the dial, and they'd be like, what's this? And they would catch these interesting...
Why is it so unique? Yeah. Huh, that's really cool. So we'll segue that into what you're doing now, which is highlighting local Ozark bands and musicians, kind of like what they used to do with these college radio stations. I mean, that is a big thing we're talking about now because you got this event coming up this next week. Because we're going to release this podcast this Saturday. Okay. So which means that the episode or your event. That was our audience. We actually have an audience this time. But your event, which is this thing right here, Queen City Shout, is starting on the 20th. So that's this next Monday.
On Monday, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how does that all tie into this whole unique Ozark culture? Because I know all the bands here are pretty much local bands.
They are. And this really just comes out of, my heart is to... I'm just kind of a music nerd through and through. Yeah. Have been all my life.
Yeah. We're picking up on that. It's all
good. And it's that idea of, grabbing, you were talking about streaming and all that, the day of grabbing tangible items, an album, and looking at the sleeve, looking at the jacket, who produced it, who was the engineer, who were the musicians involved, the artwork, the whole thing.
Did you know that the vinyl records actually sold more than CDs this last year or something like that?
I know. It's
like making a comeback.
A resurgence. Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. But so I think the festival kind of plays to that idea, as I've just always been a music fan. So other than being a songwriter and a musician in my own right for about 25 years, is I guess I had that as kind of an asset to be able to reach out to some of the community. Because this came out of, I was working as a merchandise manager at Borders Books and Music, which is no longer with us, but they were the big competitor to Barnes & Noble. Yeah. And we had a cafe.
I remember Borders. I should say I actually bought a lot of books there when I was younger.
Yeah. And, our cafe was probably 4 times larger than the one at Barnes & Noble. Okay. Yeah. And we had an in-house PA. Mm-hmm. We had touring authors. We had touring musicians that would come through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's cool. I didn't realize that was there.
Well, a lot of like solo artists that might be, or maybe even if they put out a full band album, maybe they were on a solo tour to try to sell the record and stuff. Yeah. So point being that we had a lot of the...
it's like coffee house vibe.
Yeah, and we had the PA and all that to facilitate these things. But I approached my GM one year. I thought it would be a great way to bring people in during the slow time of the year. So after the holidays, I said, hey, what do you think about putting on a festival in the cafe like the month of February? And it wasn't random. It was not only the slowest time of the year in merchandise, but South by Southwest, has always been the big kind of kickoff to the festival season.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, man, that would be cool to run a festival around that same time, and maybe we could capture some touring bands either coming to or coming back from.
Or, somebody's done earlier. Yeah, that's a really cool idea.
And, I mean, it was a long shot, but we had that going.
Mm-hmm.
But then also it was like, I'm going to reach out to the community and see who wants to play. Now, keep in mind, back then, the smoking ban was still in place. Mm-hmm. So people were allowed to smoke in all the venues and stuff. That the citywide smoking ban hadn't gone through. Also back then, if you wanted to hear live music, there were no early shows. You had to go out at 9 p.m. and stay out till 1.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, no early shows.
Yeah.
So we promoted it as family-friendly, smoke-free environment, and early shows. Because our store closed by 10, so we were putting on shows at 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And so every week, the month of February, Thursday through Sunday, we would showcase music. And I think the largest one we ever had there in store was probably 60 acts over the course of a month.
60 acts?
Yeah.
Oh, in a month. Okay, I was thinking like over a weekend. But
no,
I mean, that's still,
60
still in 4 weekends is quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at, if that's a 4-hour period, you're doing what, 2 or 3 an hour? Or?
No, we would run it all day.
Geez.
Well, like on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
So we might start at 2.
Yeah.
And each band would only play about an hour.
Jeez.
And it was also the ability for a lot of bands back then, some of the heavier ones, like Turn It Up to 11 kind of thing, where it was a way to say, hey, why don't you come and do a stripped down kind of acoustic set, kind of like an MTV Unplugged.
Yeah.
And I think they saw that as an opportunity to showcase to an audience that they might not normally reach.
I do like those unplugged sessions that bands do.
Yeah.
It brings a whole entire new vibe.
It does.
When they do that.
It totally does, regardless of the genre.
Oh, yeah.
And,
I agree.
but I remember days there where it was standing room only. We had Someone Still Loves You, Boris Yeltsin. We featured Mark Ballou from Big Smith back in the day. And so we would promote it with the news leader and things like that, but we really didn't promote it citywide. We would just put little handbills in people's shopping bags.
Oh, yeah.
So
there's a ton of people going through bookstores at that time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a ton. That was like the hangout spot for teenagers, too, at that point in time.
Yeah. So it was like, hey, come back next week. And we had a great group of followers back then.
Yeah.
And so anyway, to your question, that's kind of where it started, and that's why it started. I think the Queen City Shout name came out of this idea of obviously Queen City of the Ozarks. The shout part was kind of meant to be this, you hear about Austin, you hear about Nashville, and we're kind of a flyover zone. And so the idea was like, well, we're not shouting out angrily, but it's kind of like, hey, here we are, because I felt like,
let's get some attention.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of good talent around here. There's a ton of good talent around here.
There's a deep, deep pool. I mean,
I know when we did you were on the radio show that Matt hosted before the Who Do You Know show, and that you came in, but we also had bands come in too that would perform, and it just blew me away. Just some of the talent that would come through there and be like, and they would just play in the studio. And it was amazing to me. And I've heard some of these other bands too here locally, and it's just like you have much more access to that than I do. But I think as a person that's outside of that kind of scene, like I'm not really into the music scene as much, but just being able to go out there and be like, hey, this is really good music that I would prefer to listen to over, like, say, going to the radio or trying to go to a big band concert somewhere else. It's like, I actually like going to these local bands and listening to them because they're that good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where the shout part came. It's just kind of like, hey, we've got some skills here, especially for, as you say, like the size of the city, and
well, let's take a break right there real quick because I got to go and push some buttons on the camera. But when we get back to this, we'll talk more about the Queen City Shout and what you have coming up this next week.
Sounds good.
The 12th annual Queen City Shout Fest will take place across Greater Springfield, March 20th through the 26th. This week-long music, film, and art event will showcase local creative talent across several venues and continues to both celebrate the arts and raise funds to support poverty relief in our community. Join us as we kick off spring with a wonderful showcase of local and regional music from every genre, as well as film and art. The Queen City Shout Fest, March 20th through the 26th in Springfield, Missouri. For more info, visit queencityshout.com.
And we're back with Eddie G, the hat guy. I'm going to have to learn how to say your last name. Gumucio. That was right?
Yeah.
All right. See, the practice paid off.
Gumucio.
So we're here back with Eddie G. I like Eddie G, though. I'm going to
Eddie G, that works.
that. Yeah, Eddie G. So we were just talking about how Queen City Shout got started. So let's actually talk about what Queen City Shout is. Because it is a really... I was looking at and it's not here on this poster, but I was looking at the website, and I think there's like 100 some odd bands that you have almost.
Close to, yeah.
Close to. I mean, so it is not a small festival by any means. I mean, it is a rather large festival.
Yeah, so Queen City Shout, it's there on the poster there. Celebrate the arts, support poverty relief. Yeah. And that is the twofold mission of Queen City Shout in a nutshell. And we were talking before the break about starting at Borders. We did that for about 5-6 years there. And then after Borders, when they closed down, it didn't quit because of that. I had already left the store at that point. But when they went out of business, it was probably a lull for about 2-3 years. And honestly, it was my wife that was probably like, tired of hearing me talk about it. She's like,
just go do it.
Yeah, she's like, you came up with the name. It's your deal. She's like, reach out to the GM, and if he's cool with it, they're no longer there. And he's like, oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So we brought it out onto C Street the first handful of years.
This is before C Street was renovated, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and they were the ones that were kind of like, bring it on. And so we just ran it like this block-long party, and then the pandemic hit after like the 4th or 5th one.
Oh, geez.
Then we did a virtual one.
So when you came on the Who Do You Know show, was that like one of your first years? I forget. That was like 4 years ago now, or 5 years ago.
It was probably a year or two before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And that
would have been your first or second year.
I think this is our 12th.
Okay, so it wasn't. Okay.
So I think that was probably maybe year 8.
Okay.
Year 7, something like that. But whatever.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but we were on C Street for at least 3 years before the pandemic.
That's what it was. Okay, so you just switched. Okay, there we go.
And
my math is now working in my head. Math is not my strong suit, but
But after the pandemic, we did a virtual one during that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Last year, we always did it at the end of August. Last year, we were going to do that, and then numbers went back up. So we didn't cancel it. We put it off to the spring of last year. And then it just kind of stayed. We really liked how spring turned out last year. And that was also the first year where we moved out of C Street, because our goal was to try to cover all of Queen City, all of Springfield. So now we're in 3 barrios, Center City and on C Street. We're at downtown, Holdfast and Mothers, and Roundtree at Tie and Timber and the Royal. And then we've got 4 locations up on C Street.
Nice. So kind of expanding out, which is great.
Expanding out. Yeah. It's our second year doing that. And
so how does the festival actually work then? So say I go and buy a ticket, I'm imagining. How does that work? Like, walk me through it.
We sell a 7-day pass.
Okay.
And we sell a single-day pass. So you can buy those in advance. But essentially, the single-day pass is you go to a venue, you show them your ticket, they give you a wristband for the day. And that gets you into any of the locations where there's any programming going on.
Yeah.
The 7-day pass is the same, except it's a cardstock card, so it's kind of like your passport, and you hold on to that, and we stamp it each day.
Oh, okay.
So there's a different colored wristband for each day. So you show the card, they give you a wristband for that day. You can bring it back the next day, et cetera, et cetera.
So these are restaurants they're performing in typically? Plus some venues, I'm imagining.
There's venues, bars, breweries,
so do
restaurants.
they close down the restaurant to the public during this, or is it? How does that work out?
No, and that's a very organic thing. Even when we were just on C Street, I'll use Lindbergh's as an example. The owners were like, we want to do this, but if local Joe wants to come in for his burger and beer, we're not going to turn him away.
Yeah.
If he doesn't want to buy a ticket. And we're like, absolutely not. So all the people at the door are volunteers from the nonprofit agencies, and we're not going to stiff arm anybody. But 9 out of 10 people that come down for that weekend are there typically for the festival.
Yeah.
Same with places like White River or Tie and Timber. I mean, they have a lot of regulars.
Yeah.
But all the volunteers are at the door saying, hey, this weekend we're doing this. And so, we try to catch a lot of folks that way.
That's cool.
But it's funny that you bring that up because a lot of the pre-sales, you see a lot of the same names come up,
right.
and those are the diehards.
Yep.
They're like, here it is again. I'm doing this.
I help out with State of 48, and it's the same thing there, where it's like every year you see, okay, yeah, here we know these 10 teams are going to sign up right away.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So whenever you you buy the ticket, you go to the place. What can I expect? Like, say if I go to Lindbergh's. Do they perform there every day, or is it one day a week, or how does that work?
So it runs Monday through Sunday, and the heart of the festival is always going to be the music part. Back when we only did it as a 3-day event, that's kind of what stayed. So Thursday to Sunday is when the majority of the bands are playing.
Oh, okay.
And they're staggered, kind of like a South by Southwest, where you technically could go into White River and catch a band at 7 o'clock, come out, walk down the street to Moon City Pub, catch the middle 20 of another act, come out, go over to Lindbergh's, catch the last 20 minutes of another act. You could conceivably get 3 to 4 acts in one round.
And they play all day?
They play all day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now, Thursday and Friday, it's in the evening. Saturdays all day, Sundays all day. And then Monday through Wednesday, we kind of just have pop-up events. We just sprinkle different events in there. So there's some music events, there's some art events, there's some film events that we plug in. So we say it's music, film, and art. This is the third year. Well, if you count the pandemic, the virtual one, the 4th year that we've incorporated film and art. And so we definitely want to see that part of it grow.
Yeah, sure.
And so
there's definitely more than enough to share of that around here. There's a lot of local artists that not only musicians, but filmmakers, other types of art. It's always good to incorporate those. I agree.
So we have, it runs the gamut. We've probably featured close to 20 films since we started bringing in films. Same with art. One year up on C Street, we had a gallery opening where we had 9 different artists showcasing their artwork.
That's really cool.
Pieces sold, so the artists would contribute part of the profits back to the nonprofits if they so chose. This year with the artists, they're going to be doing live art. So they're going to be scheduled throughout some of the other venues, and as a band's playing, they're going to be creating pieces in real time. And then if people want to buy those pieces...
I have seen people talk about that. Like some of my friends that are artists, they talk about doing that. I've never actually seen it in person, though. Is it pretty impressive to see? Or
It is. Yeah. It is. It's just, it's kind of like, real-time inspiration. You're sitting there and
especially listening to music like that. I'm sure they're very much inspired by all the songs going on around them.
Yeah. And, each artist has their own forte in terms of what inspires them. So, it may not be the venue or the music, but maybe it at least speaks to what their style might be and what they're creating. But that's a really cool thing. And then we've partnered with the Moxie and the Creamery Arts Center and with Missouri State with some of their student films in the past. Sado 48 as well.
Right. Yeah.
And that's been really nice because I think they see that as kind of a platform to kind of showcase where they've been from the previous year as a way of kind of springboarding into their new year, which I think is in April?
Yeah, April 21st this year.
Yeah. So that's been a really nice partnership.
Yeah. Well, they intend on growing it, so.
Good.
Plenty of filmmakers around here that would love to showcase their films at places like that. Because I know we're lacking State of 48 is a short film festival, and there's a lot of people that have talked about doing a longer, like actual full length or 40-minute, 30-minute long films. But that hasn't happened just yet. But there's a lot of people I know that are working towards that. And maybe Queen City Shout could showcase some of those at some point. I think that'd be great.
That would be cool.
So what's your favorite part of this whole entire festival? Like, what gets you excited about it, besides the fact that it's over and you can stop, worrying about everything?
I'm just like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I mean, when it's all said and done, there's a lot of front end work that goes into it. This is the second year that I've had a committee, so they've taken a lot of the weight off my back in terms of having to wear all these different hats. The hat guy, you know.
Hat guy.
So that's been a real blessing, and like once it's all ready to go, it's like me and my wife can go down and check out a band here, check out a band there.
Do you play? during one of the sets?
Yeah.
Does your wife play with you? I should ask that.
She does not.
Oh,
no.
okay. I try to get my wife to sing with me too. It
never
happens.
Yeah. No, she only does that before and after the show.
There we go.
But no, PG. I mean, just
Yeah, no, I get it.
Going around checking out music,
and she'll be singing along with it.
Singing along.
My wife will do the same thing. We'll sing to our kids, but I'm like, hey, you want to come sing? And it's like, no,
exactly.
I don't want to actually sing in front of people. Yeah, no, I get it. So you guys actually perform then. So if people want to come and see you perform, when would that be?
Eddie Gumucio on the Electrics. We're playing at Tie and Timber on Saturday.
Cool.
So
I may have to come to that one
in the kind of early evening.
Okay. I like it. So what is a fun story from the Queen City Shout? You've been doing this for, you said, how many years?
This is our 12th year.
12th year. So I'm sure you have some crazy stories. I mean, we'll keep it so it's not bagging on anybody, but, just something that's crazy that's happened to you. Anything that you can think of.
I mean, not really. I mean, there's just been so much fun music.
So
really.
what's the funnest thing that's happened? Like, have you had any super big artists show up that have here locally, or have you had any sort of, or is it just good times, good music, just every single year?
That's pretty much it. Yeah. I mean,
that's a good story right there too.
Going around, taking it in, and early on, when I was doing this up on C Street, I had my little iPhone 5, and I was
now we're on like iPhone 200 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
And I was trying to capture a little bit. I wanted to catch every act.
Yeah.
So I was literally running from venue to venue and catching like a song or 30 seconds.
Jeez,
and I'd be like, but I would sit there and like come up to them and get the guitar solo.
Be artistic,
and then Yeah, and then go around, get on stage, capture the drum, and they're all sitting there playing, and it seemed like a lot of the bands thought it was really cool. They weren't like, get out of my face. They're like, whoa, this is cool. It's Eddie.
Sure,
and I'm just sitting like, hey. So they were used to, kind of seeing the hat guy there come up. There he is with this little iPhone 5.
I really want to get you a shirt now that says, I'm the hat guy, don't worry about it. And you have your little camera on there. I'm just taking pictures.
But that was a lot of fun. Just trying to, get it all out there and be like, here's another great act. Here's another great act.
I do that sorry to go back to that story. I do that as a videographer all the time too. And it gets kind of weird sometimes where you're just kind of like, I'm going to zoom in really close on you while you're doing your thing and get you. Okay. I got to get this action shot. You'll love it later. Like 2 or 3 days later when I give you the final video, it'll look great. But anyway. But
it, that whole experience was fun for me personally, just because, again, it was an attempt at trying to get as much of the music out there and let people know about it. To be like, hey, you're missing this great thing right now. And also, that's the beauty of a festival. Sometimes venues or other folks are like, can you give us a breakdown of who the bands are and what their genres are and what kind of things they do? Well, for one, we don't have the kind of resources to do that and the time to be like, clicking in links and streaming this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
But a festival really is an opportunity to go out and see some acts that you already know in a festival environment, and then also be like, oh, here's a cool name, Phantom Sam. I wonder what they're about.
Yeah.
And just go and discover new acts.
Yeah. And kind of have a little bit of mystery.
That is a great memory too. You were asking earlier, I think the feedback that you get, this idea of like, oh, I discovered this great band and I discovered this great act and I'd never heard of so-and-so and they were good. That's when you know you're doing something right. Yeah.
That is awesome. Man, I don't even know what else to say beyond that. That was really cool. So let's we are actually at about that time when we should be wrapping up. So let's just say what is the best way for people to find you and learn more about the festival and then buy tickets and then just anything you want people to know about the festival.
Well, the queencityshout.com. Okay. That is the main place to go.
And it's really
everything.
Cool because it's this 8-bit design through the whole entire festival, which I think is pretty fun.
Yeah, artist Gary Bedell came up with the whole concept this year for it. So we were really excited. He had the whole idea for the 8-bit business.
Yeah.
But yeah, aside from the website, I definitely want to remind everybody as to why we do this and why we're here. There's the Celebrate the Arts, obviously, but more importantly, supporting poverty relief.
Yeah.
All the proceeds from the ticket sales, the merch sales, all of that are split evenly amongst our 6 nonprofits to support poverty relief in the Ozarks.
Nice.
So
that's a great mission.
We are not a for-profit event.
Mm-hmm. you do try to support the musicians and stuff that do come on.
We do, yeah. We do give out a $50 guarantee to most of the acts that play, all the acts, I should say, that play. But we've been really fortunate in the last 3 years that they don't want it.
Yeah.
They're just like, man.
I think that's a good indication of like the Ozarks in general, like our culture of giving around here. I mean, we've talked before about how many nonprofits are in the Springfield area. It's a lot. It's like half of Springfield is employed by a nonprofit.
Right.
But that's just, I think, the general feeling of the area, and that's part of our culture is that we love to help people out, and we love to give and support and volunteer. And I think it's telling that the bands, even though they're putting all this effort out there, they're willing to give that money back to this nonprofit and help and support people.
I couldn't agree more. And as a fellow musician, I get it. It's like no one wants to play for free. I know that bands and songwriters contribute to different causes throughout the year. For some of them, this might be the one time that they do that. And so we're very appreciative. But as you say, I think we're really blessed again that they, kind of, it's like them saying, well, we believe in this enough to say, hey, no, turn this back and give it back. And so that's been really wonderful.
That's great. Yeah. All right. So QueenCityShout.com, or was it
QueenCityShout.com.
Okay. And then of course you have Facebook. You have some social media stuff that we won't go into that bad story there, but if you haven't liked his page recently, please go into Queen City Shout and re-like it. There's been some issues there, but we won't go into that. But check out for the festival
numbers
access.
are lying. The numbers are lying.
More people like it than it looks like. If anybody knows how to get Facebook to help restore pages, please contact QueenCityShout.com. But so the tickets are sold on the website or through Facebook, I'm imagining.
Yeah, through the website. Our ticket provider is Eventbrite, but instead of going into all that, if they go to Queen City Shout, they can access it. We run a GoFundMe every year.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So in addition to the ticket sales that for the nonprofits through the Eventbrite, through the website, they can also go to our GoFundMe through there if folks feel like contributing some extra amount.
Finding lineups and where people performing, is that on the website as well, or is...
Yeah, the daily schedule. There's a music button, a film button, and an art button. So if they click music, and it's 8-bit, so it's kind of like, what's this wonky little thing? But it does say music,
transported
film.
back to the 90s.
So just imagine you're playing Pac-Man again. And
there we go.
Okay. But yeah, if you click music, there's a whole schedule, Monday through Sunday, same for the film and same for the art. Of course, those two elements, they're just going to kind of be scattered throughout the days in the festival.
Perfect. Well, Eddie, thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been a great fun getting to learn more about you in the festival. So
thank you so much for having me.
We'll have to have you back on in future point, and you can talk about how it went.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have like a favorite slogan or tagline for QCS you want to say on the way out? Do you have a song you want to sing?
Celebrate the arts, support poverty relief.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to Exploring the Ozarks. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our social media channels to help us keep exploring the stories of the Ozarks. If you're looking for more ways to support our show, we have sponsorships for businesses and Patreon for individual supporters. Check the links in the description for more details. Thanks for your support, and keep exploring the Ozarks.